Rolling Stone, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms.
I just saw it. I'm a
Does
dad.
it seem kooky?
I'm a husband.
Do you
right?
have brainworms?
No. I have a heart. The fact that the national media response is pigeonholing this as some type of faith-based farce, it makes me question, like, how high up does this go in these networks, right? Because these networks and all these entities are
that's the point
owned,
that Steve's trying to make.
Money. They didn't address it in the movie at all, but it's implied. If all of these kids are being trafficked, who is buying them? Right. They're very expensive. Mm-hmm. It's expensive to transport a bunch of children secretly through customs and all that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's where all the higher ups, people with money, rich people with accessibility to cash are the main buyers.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. So glad to have you today joining us for what's going to be probably a pretty tough conversation, a heavy conversation for all three of us for a variety of reasons. But I'm really thankful. This is the first for me, not for you, first for me sitting at the mic podcasting with that guy.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
With Steve, who shall not be named.
Steve, who shall not be named, Ohocinski. No, well, there's something. Yeah, we'll tackle that one a little bit later in the episode for sure. But Coach Chris Wilson here hosting today with fellow host of the podcast, Jared Haley, and second-time guest, Stephen Ohocinski, who is both Steve and Jared work together, are our videographers, our video team, our production specialists. They do all our editing and filming here and countless other things. And so really honored to have two men who I've been working with now for about 1.5 years, and we spend a lot of time together and have great mutual respect for each other and friendship. And we felt with the obviously this movie that's come out that's obviously gotten a lot of press and a lot of attention. I think it was only a matter of time before we saw it at some point, just in our lives, out of interest. But we were talking, I don't know, maybe it was last week, I think, and we said, "Ooh," one of you said, "This is probably an opportunity to podcast."
Sure.
And this is not a topic that we've not touched before. We did an episode years ago about trafficking, human trafficking. If you go way back, listeners, it's I think that the title is something about end human slavery or modern day slavery.
Okay.
And it's about, so we had some local people that came in. Natasha is her name, and she came in, and I was not in the conversation. I listened to the podcast. Obviously, it was with Brian at the time, and very powerful conversation. So certainly go back and check that one out. But today's conversation is really going to be our feelings. We've all just seen the movie. In fact, Jared and I came from the movie theater with my wife.
Yeah. We intentionally did not have a conversation before this conversation.
Yes, we have not talked about the movie at all. Our feelings about it. Steve went a few days back and saw it with his wife.
He's had to bite his tongue a little bit more.
He's had to bite his tongue, and we have not talked with each other on purpose, just because we wanted our feelings and our insights and our response to the movie to be as real and first
organic,
as possible.
Authentic.
It's good. So again, Steve, Give our listeners just a little background, because last time
I have some notes.
Just the last time you were on the show, I don't think they got to know you at all. You guys dove right into the topic, which was that conspiracy episode.
We had a lot to talk about that day.
You did, but just a little background information, because at this stage, if they're return listeners, they're very familiar with my voice and Jared's voice hosting and having guests, but not so much familiar with you or your work or your background, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a filmmaker my whole life, and I worked in the industry in New York for 10 years, something like that, on off. I've worked on indie films, and that's why this topic is kind of interesting to me. Yeah. It's a 15 million or 14.5 million budget, which sounds like a lot to you or I, but for a film, that's almost nothing. We're looking 300 million and up for all the major blockbusters that you see in theaters. So 50 million is not nothing, but it's certainly very, very small budget movie that's making a big impact right now. And it's kind of interesting to talk about. About me, I guess that's really it. I'm kind of boring when it comes to
Where are you from?
Talking about me. I'm from Pennsylvania.
What's your address?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, moved to New York for work, and I moved down here to join the lovely Critical Bench family. I've been enjoying it ever since.
The last 4 numbers of your Social Security number. I mean, just those.
04.
I was trying to remember, actually, what was your mom's maiden name?
Your first pet.
Let's get down and dirty here. So that's good background. And sometimes I forget that your history before coming to us was in filmmaking and being on sets and in various capacities. I know for a decade plus, and so you come with a different perspective that I could have, and certainly that from what Jared could have a little bit. Jared, of your background too, I think, just because why not? I mean, what had you been doing for 5 to 10 years prior?
So I was doing like video production at a church. On the side, I've done a lot of more like documentary style things, specifically for nonprofits, helping them get their story out. I think there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are doing incredible work and incredible ministries, but they don't have the budget to hire these high-end, film media companies to come in and actually give their story. So as a kind of a side hustle for me to make a little bit more, but at the same time, I could approach them and help them get their story out there at a more of a discounted rate. And for me, it was all about helping them further their ministry and at the same time help, be sustainable as a family. So that's kind of my major role behind the scenes. We did different shows and things like that, but it wasn't like a movie set. It was more, again, kind of that docu-style feel. Steve always says he wants to get me on a movie set one day. So, because I love looking at like Instagram and things like that, and these pictures I'm always bringing it to Steve, like, hey, this is what it looks like behind the scenes. This is how they're lighting stuff. It really intrigues me, what something looks like on set compared to what it looks like on camera. Right. Because it's completely different.
Yeah. I can only imagine the difference, as Steve alluded to at the start, between a $15 million project and a $250 to $300 million project. Just vastly different. You're talking much more people, way more equipment, way more, length of time, technology, I'm sure it's companies that work with other companies that work with other companies, right? And it goes from one layer to another layer in terms of.
I wonder, like the Mandalorian, like the show, how much that cost?
Well, I'm sure a ton of money.
You think it's more than this movie?
Absolutely. I mean, when you really think about the budgets of big budget or even small budget movies, there's like top the above the line costs, and those are all the producers, the directors, and your main talent, and that usually cuts 50% out of that 15 million that they're talking about. So then the rest goes for food and the crew and the gear and whatever other things are necessary. But when you're looking at millions and millions of dollars, 50% of that goes to that above the line budget. That's what it's called. Yeah. So
before you've done anything, before you've edited,
just the agreements, the agreements with the main people in charge and making the thing. So it's not. It's a lot of money, but it's not that much when it comes to making a movie. 15 mil. They finished. It was mostly financed by a group of Mexican backers. I don't have their names. The director, Alejandro Monteverde, he's, I'm assuming, from Mexico. So we had a bunch of Mexican backers. They made it for $14.5 million. They finished it in 2018, and it was set to be distributed by 21st Century Fox. They had a deal. They had international distribution, which is big. You want that when you're trying to make an indie movie. Disney acquired 21st Century Fox in 2019. And after that, no one wanted to distribute the movie because they needed to buy it from Disney at that point, because they owned it. They own the rights, distribution rights for it.
Sure.
Netflix passed on it. Amazon passed on it. And eventually, as we know now, Angel Studios decided to go with it. But they had to crowdfund all the money. So they crowdfunded, I think it was in a week or so. It was millions of dollars got crowdfunded to buy back the
that's
distro.
That's a new, unique thing too, right? Is crowdfunding for movies.
It is weird. Yeah, the industry is definitely changing in a very fast pace. When you look at all the strikes going on now, all the crowdfunding movies, this big indie film that no one expected would make moves. I think we're seeing a real toss up of how things are going in the industry, and I don't even know if you'll get the chance to be on one of those big movie sets anymore.
They might not exist anymore.
They might not exist anymore.
Right. We have noticed a shift, though. I mean, just me as a lay person that doesn't know much, and not compared to what you guys are aware of, is a lot of these big name actors have gone to I don't know, smaller scale projects. It looks like, and I'm sure they're still getting paid handsomely, but. I don't know what's the allure for them maybe to maybe step away from Hollywood or some of that and kind of go into some of these other reaches of filmmaking.
I mean, if you've watched any indie movies, for the most part, they're usually character driven stories. So the big blockbuster movies are all plot. It's all someone's about to destroy the world and we have to fight and save the world.
I feel like Armageddon.
Yeah, that's the typical trend. But indie movies tend to have very character focused things. They usually an actor who's been pigeonholed in a leading role, like a Chris Pratt or something, would take an indie role as the bad guy in the movie. Or that's how the actors sort of get something out of it, as well as a payday.
Sure,
they're not they're taking a hit.
I would imagine that. When you're sitting down thinking about casting and stuff like that, you're sitting in a room going, hey, I think this particular actor might be good. Can you go pitch it to him?
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, and that all happens in the beginning, makings of the movie. Before if it's even written sometimes. They just make a poster in Photoshop and then shop it around to casting agents.
Can we get these people maybe?
Yeah, because if you have Chris Pratt says yes to your thing, then you go to the guy who's funding it and say, look, I have Chris Pratt. I just need an extra $2 million.
Right.
So it's you almost kind of make the deal before the deal's.
That's right.
It's a catch-22. You need the main actors in order to get the budget, and you need the budget in order to get the main actors.
I got Tom Brady as our quarterback. Yeah. Do we have a few more dollars to get said receiver, running back, a left tackle to protect him? It's we could probably make that work.
So, anyways, all these movies are being made with lots of money. It's all deals being made and millions of dollars being thrown all over the place. So the fact that this movie got made at all is always good. I always love seeing indie movies actually finish.
The fact that it sat on a shelf, though, for a period of years, 5 years, is, that was news to me, as it was, I guess, to most people. And I'm sure this happens all the time to movies that are released years later for a variety of reasons. I mean, another example, very different scenario, was Top Gun. The Maverick movie was ready to go, and COVID happened, and then they said, "Ooh, no one's going to the movie theaters. We're going to sit on this movie." And I might get some things wrong here. They sat on that movie for 2 years before they released that in the movie theater.
They wanted people to experience it in the theater.
They wanted that movie to be a theater movie, and I applaud them for that.
Sure,
because it was a great movie theater film to see. I mean, it was beautifully shot. And it was powerful. I liked it more than the first one.
Yeah, it was very Americana at the moment.
It was a very Americana at the moment type movie, but it was 5 years. That's and these other companies. Why? What do you think? Why'd they keep their distance from it? Because of the genre? Because of the topic?
I mean, that's part of the controversy of the movie. People are saying that Disney held on to the rights because they didn't want child trafficking to be out in public.
They didn't want it to get exposed.
And I mean, I don't know the truth of that. I mean, Disney says they didn't even know they had the movie for those
just
years.
one of many things.
That was their statement.
Well,
Recent
they're not going
statement.
to come out and be like, no, of course we didn't want people to know about this. You know that would be stupid on their part.
Yeah. So I'm not sure, and there is some controversy around that and why it was, why it was held back for so long. Why now? Mm-hmm. There's even people saying that AMC is like turning the heat up in the theaters, or like.
But that happened to you. This isn't like
when I saw it, it was very hot at the end of the movie.
So let's go.
Extremely warm.
Let's go to your experience going to see the movie just days ago with your wife.
We got there. It was packed. It was crowded. I could only get the last row. It was like a 7:00 showing, so it was like a primetime movie time. Mm-hmm. I mean, just the experience of seeing the movie, I found the sound was really low, and I couldn't tell whether or not it was like the 5.1 Dolby surround mix wasn't good, or the theater purposely kept the volume low, so attention spans.
That's because that's how Jim Caviezel talks.
He
is pretty quiet.
I don't know. I was very skeptical on all those videos I saw online of like people like saying that the movie got shut down and they were told to come back, and I was like, that seems like a lot of malarkey. So I was like waiting for something to happen and waiting to have an explanation for it, because I'm aware that people are just dumb and say dumb things on the internet. Mm-hmm. But it was very warm in that theater by the end. Me and my wife were sweating.
Interesting.
Sticking to the seat. Like, I was like, and usually movie theaters are super cold.
Right.
Yes.
So that's why I was like, what is happening in here?
Our theater was very cold, but we did not go at prime time. We went at 10:00
this morning
on a Tuesday morning.
That's right.
With nobody in the theater.
Yeah, there was there 15 people maybe?
I was telling Steve, like, there's no reason for them to mess with that one because there's nobody there anyway.
That's right.
So what were your thoughts about the movie? You guys literally just saw it. Do you have any like first remarks that you can look at each other and be like, remember that?
You go first.
I want to hear you. You go.
All right, fine. Well, your Easter egg.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so Steve, before he said, look, here, I have my phone right here.
There's a character in the movie that kind of shares a last name.
You text me.
Last name to me.
I texted you this morning. I said, "Good morning, my friend. Getting to the movies now." You wrote, "Good morning. Have fun." And then I said, "Did you get the podcast site set up for us?" Which is this Jared's office that's turned into our podcast setting. And you wrote, "Yeah, I'm setting it up now. By the way, there's a character in the movie that shares my name, Easter egg." Uh-huh. And sure enough, there's this sketchy guy, the pedophile, that's
child porn guy
in the beginning, whose last name is Ohocinski. Now we're not sure how he spells it.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not spelled the same.
Probably not.
It almost sounded like Ohocinski.
Yeah, which is how people pronounce my name.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
But then being in the theater with my wife, and there's a guy, like creepy guy with a mustache and a sweaty bowl cut, looking up, and he's going, "Mr. Ohocinski."
Yeah.
My wife she gave you a hard look, didn't she?
I looked right at Chris too. I was like,
I'm like, there's that Easter egg.
And they say it twice. So like the first time he says it, I was like, did I hear that right? And then they said it again. I'm like, okay, I heard it right.
Yeah, real bummer, bummer there. But
Sorry,
no
Steve.
relation, by the way.
Yeah, no relation.
That's right.
He didn't have a beard like that. That's for sure. What are my feelings about the movie? First of all, I've been a Jim Caviezel fan for a long time. As far back, obviously, I saw The Passion of the Christ with Mel Gibson's movie with him as Jesus. But when I first met my wife in 2002,
Jim Caviezel introduced you.
How'd you know?
Yeah, I just felt it.
I wish that was it. Her favorite movie, and she had just seen it. Her favorite movie is The Count of Monte Cristo. Mm-hmm. And she's like, we have to watch this movie. You have to watch it. You'll love this movie. Mm-hmm. Sure. And so I was like, sure. And I watched it. I'm like, oh man, just a great movie, great character. That revenge. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen that, it's 20 years old, the movie, a little over 20 at this point, and it's a wonderful film with him. So I was a huge fan of his at that point. And then he was on network television, that series, I'm trying to think of the name of it right now, with the guy, the smart guy with the glasses, that was always, he was in the Lost show, I think, and then he was like the behind the scenes guy.
Is that Person of Interest?
Person of Interest.
Yeah,
it wasn't coming to me, but
yeah.
So we love that show, that series. We watched that start to finish, and we just that was just like him taking care of like the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've always just loved him and the movies and the shows that he's been in, and I knew just going into this, I'm gonna like it just because he's in it.
Because you like him, yeah.
Because I like him, and so I did know about OUR and about Tim Ballard a bit from years ago when I was at a live event. I believe it was up in Orlando with Mike. I was at a.
You remember what year?
ClickFunnels. It would have been 2018. It was right before the podcast started. Actually, I was at a live event, and they were talking about Operation Underground Railroad or whatever back then, and the work that he was doing, and gave him some stage time and some notoriety and stuff. I believe he was at the. I think he was at the event, and Mike might be able to. And that's, I think, at that point when Mike found out about that, about child trafficking and sex trafficking, human trafficking, that whole arena, stuff that I think most people didn't realize to what degree stuff like that goes on, certainly in this country. And he felt compelled to take some action and start supporting that cause.
He's a long-time donator, isn't he?
He has been for
not decades.
Not decades, no, but for the last 5+ years he has been. And I was thinking of Hope, the children's home that we donate to here locally. So, I mean, my feelings of the movie, I'm sitting between my wife and Jared. I know it's a powerful story. It doesn't take much to get me emotional.
You were bawling the whole time, or?
Wasn't bawling.
There's a few like comical moments.
There was a few. Yeah, there actually were a few comical moments. Jared and I looked at each other. Certainly, Ohocinski, we made eye contact.
It was unintentional comical.
Yeah. A couple different. I mean, the characters I thought were great. I thought it was casted very well. I thought it was shot very well. There were no slow parts to it. It was held my attention the entire time. The kids that they got, they
were great little actors.
The brother and sister were absolutely wonderful. They were wonderful, very believable, very authentic and real feeling. Certainly that, just seeing the little boy, seeing his dad at the airport, that was powerful.
Well, at the very beginning of the movie, right, when...
Wait, should we do a spoiler alert here for people who haven't seen it?
Gee whiz, I hope just by the title.
Avoid the rest of this episode if you haven't seen it.
That's right. If you haven't seen the movie, that's right.
Go watch the movie and then come back.
Luckily, this is releasing, over a month after the movie has been out. So
we tried, guys. We tried.
We're trying.
So the beginning of the movie is basically, showing you all of this stuff happening to like kids, right?
Yes.
And I know, like, it's invoking like
we
rage.
said that's what I said. I'm already angry.
I think your words was like, okay, well now I'm angry or something. Like they did a good job of like, but they set it up, but then they also showed like cameras, like security cameras of like kids actually being
actual events occurring,
being taken and things along those lines. Or it's it's one thing to think, oh, that's a good story. It's another thing when they move it into, hey, this is stuff that's actually happening.
Let's finish out talking about like it as a movie.
Okay,
because I am interested. You haven't seen that many independent movies, I don't think. You see what's in the theater, you see what comes on streaming, and that's most people don't really.
Yep.
I seek them out because I'm into it.
It's your thing.
But most people haven't. So you didn't feel like you lost any. Like there wasn't like, oh, this isn't a real movie.
For not one moment did I question the quality or the overall essence of the film.
I felt the same way.
I felt it's a number one from start to finish. Lighting, sound, backdrop, whatever you want to say, settings. The
only thing I would say is sometimes, for me, the writing, like you can have a really, really good actor.
Oh yeah.
But if the writing is no good, like the best actor cannot make those words sound right. And there's only one character in it really that kind of bothered me, and it's an actor that I like a lot. I don't know what his name is. He was the chief in this movie. He plays Woody on Psych.
I know who you're talking about.
And
I know.
I give props to the few Hollywood actors that decided to go in this movie.
Sure.
I'm sure they took flack for it, but
I just wish that, like, I just don't think that in reality a chief of something like that would
Homeland
be
Security.
so soft. Like, he just seemed really soft to me. And I don't know. That was just
like
kinda,
he had a heart for Tim Ballard's character, or Jim
but you can
Caviezel's
like
portrayal.
the person with. Sorry, am I getting
just a little
excited?
that. That's all.
Is he eating it? He's eating it.
That's why I have these headphones on so I can monitor.
Because you can like the person, but I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know. It
could have been one of those things where the writers didn't want to disparage the law enforcement that Tim Ballard ultimately gets out of, because they weren't doing enough in his. You know what I mean? I'm sure they didn't want the movie to become about that.
One line that stuck out to me when it cut to them in his office, and man, I wish I could remember what his name is, but the chief basically says, like, "What's going on? You okay?" And it's just it's
he mothered him a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm like, the way that it came off, I was like, I don't know. And then it was like this slow zoom in to Jim, saying whatever he said. And I don't know, that scene, that was the one scene that I think stuck out to me that I went, meh. But
you mentioned something, it's like, is that something you've noticed in Christian films?
I think in Christian films, I don't know if this is a Christian film, although, Jim did put in his 2 cents every once in a while. He quoted scripture.
Are not for sale.
He said amen at one point. So there was some of that stuff in there. But it does seem like sometimes, I was proud of them though. They did curse a few times in this movie, which I know. Oh, look out! But I appreciate that, because I'm like, I've been around cops. Like my friend from high school is a cop, and I went on a ride along. Like, I know how they talk when they're with each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's
they're not keeping it clean,
right? To cover,
cops aren't church moms.
And they have to be. They have to be tough. They have to be hard, because it's the nature of the job. It's like being in the Army, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of thing. It's almost like you need it to endure what you're going through. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but it brought a little bit more realness to it, as opposed to just trying to keep everything clean, and I think at least with Christian movies, it's almost like I think music is getting better, but for a long time, like, Christian music just had a sound that instantly you're like, okay, it's a Christian song.
The Michael W. Smith sound. That is what I put it to. There's certain songs of his I can't listen to.
The Christian movies oftentimes will do that too. Even like indie movies that are like in the main scene, you go like, it just
and
has
this didn't have that for you necessarily.
It didn't. Most of the time, it did not.
You were looking for it, though.
That particular scene, I was. It's like you can't not look for it.
Yeah.
But I felt like overall they did a really, really good job of really keeping that story moving and doing a good job of actually. I thought that they did a good job of setting up the stuff that nobody wants to see in a way that led you there without taking you there, if that makes sense.
The show, don't tell, is like, that's what they say.
Yeah. So it's like, what's about to happen, but even I was thinking about even like when they're going through like the red light district in I don't know if they're Colombia or wherever they were at.
Well, in Tijuana.
In Tijuana,
areas.
Where they did a good job of like showing things that were going on without you actually seeing what's going on. I don't know how else to describe it. There's like silhouette stuff in the background, and
that's how movies used to be made. You know what I mean? Like
right.
A man kisses a woman.
There's
the
inferences to
pans
things
over to a plant.
Right.
That's all you need.
A movie completely unrelated to this, that Queen Bohemian Rhapsody movie that came out years ago, the Freddie Mercury Queen story.
Another Christian film.
Not quite. I thought they did a great job in that film, making it less about his proclivities, and alluding to those things, and they were there to a point, and then they were gone. It was more about the band and the music and the story of Queen, and not just here's Freddie Mercury and what he was doing when the door was closed.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
I didn't need to see that.
Right. And you don't. But they can also go so far the other direction that it's like it doesn't even feel real.
It's unrealistic.
You know, it's like super like this is not what this scene would be like, you know.
I thought this movie was hard to categorize. I thought it was like a suspense thriller action. Right? I mean,
nothing blowing up.
Yeah, there was. That's what I wanted to talk
No real
to.
car chases.
No car chases. No real gunfights. No.
There's some gunfights.
Was there?
I mean, with the rebels.
Yeah, but that was him running away.
Yeah,
that was about it.
You know what I mean? He was running away from gunshots.
I thought for sure someone was going to be shot at the end.
He didn't take a gun with him.
Yeah, he didn't take a gun with him. I don't know if that's true in the true story.
That's true, but I mean, I think he said,
got
"I think
caught
I'll be
with
better without it."
Yeah,
and sure enough, it's like if you're going in as a doctor, you don't want to have weapons on you at all if you're going to be believable.
You want to give them a reason to shoot you.
That's right. That's right. And that's probably all it would have taken. I mean, I thought they did a great job there with what how scary and how realistic
they did a really like those actors who played the rebels did a really good job. Like the way that they were super intimidating. Even like when he gets in the boat, like one guy just sits in front of him and just like glares
staring at him.
And I'm just like
waiting for an opportunity to blow him away.
I mean, so
it was lawlessness in the jungle.
Yeah,
basically, is what the essence of that scene was.
I don't know. I mean, the bravery on this guy to do this,
the
cojones. But I don't. You can say, oh, it's probably a little exaggerated. It's a little bit of this. It's a little bit of that. You say whatever you will. The numbers are the numbers. Like he has rescued children firsthand. He has gone. He has gone to places that are very dark and done some extraordinary things that I couldn't imagine. And the fact that he was able to, get this story out is pretty amazing.
I was thinking, I'm curious. I don't know. Are we ready to kind of move into some other thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to finish up on the movie thing.
I want some more thoughts.
Let me just
Steve.
a couple thoughts. I thought the Jim's acting style is certainly, I think, going to be limiting to what audience is going to appreciate it. You like him I like him because we've seen him in Passion. We know
you like him as a person.
I more like him as a person than I do. He kind of has like a shtick. He does like it's it's almost melodrama.
Yeah,
where he's always just staring.
Very melancholy.
And it works. Like Clint Eastwood kind of does that thing.
Everybody kind of has something, right? Pacino has something. De Niro has
his character could have been more likable.
Okay.
To get more of the other people that wouldn't necessarily go see this movie.
Okay.
Sure.
I think we need...
we're biased because we already liked him.
Yeah.
Right.
And my personal opinion, he could have been more likable, could have had... I don't know, but the subject matter is so dark and so, what is he... He's not going to Han Solo it out there.
No, I think people... I think
it's not gonna work.
I think people are going to see him as like kind of that quiet warrior, that quiet, brave, stoic type presence, that a safe haven. I mean, the way when that little boy came over and gave him a big hug, when he realized like I'm back with my daddy and this is the man who like made it happen. Like
Timoteo.
Yeah, Timoteo. That's. And so I'm fine with the way he portrayed Tim Ballard in it. Was Tim probably a little bit more gregarious, maybe, or a little bit more emotional, or loud, or whatever? I don't know. Maybe
I really wish that they would have done a little bit more with his family. Like that would have helped with I think him being a likable. Like
showed him
all
more,
the scenes were him. Working late. It was him doing the stakeout. It was. I'm like.
That's what I'm saying. There wasn't a lot of humanizing.
It was
to
really
his character.
It was almost like I'm like, if I'm in a marriage, we have several children, and if I was never home like that, my wife would not be happy.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying
she was highly supportive.
She was highly supportive, but at the same time, like, what about the kids? Are the kids highly supportive that my dad? And so that's kind of like the internal wrestle that you have. Like, obviously, you don't want to be like, oh, he shouldn't be out there doing those things because those kids need to be rescued too.
Sure.
But at the expense of your own kids? Like, what? How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a definitely. I'm sure they talked about that in the screenplay, and then
there's probably some scenes that didn't make
they
it.
Ultimately
that were
probably
shot.
decided, like, look, we're sticking to our guns,
I mean,
and
the
talking
movie's
about
like
the
2.5
one
hours
thing.
anyway.
It is.
I felt personally that him going into the jungle, I thought it was good and it worked for the movie, but I was less interested in him Ramboing into the jungle to save one girl. It was fun to watch.
Yeah.
But to me, I was like, it was all the process of how they take the kids.
Yeah.
And the process of the sting operation to get them back.
Yeah.
There was a lot of interesting stuff in there that we can now transition to in the actual subject matter.
I think that they're trying to fit one more aspect of trafficking. Like I felt like they wanted to say, hey, not only is it happening in this realm, but it's also happening like within military structures as well.
Sure.
It's kind of what I saw it as. And so in order to capture that piece, like they needed to add, because the movie totally could have ended with her being a part of that original raid and like, oh, we got her back, we take our home movies over.
Yeah.
But then they had this one extra kind of
It was a long end. It was like another 30 minutes.
That's
of the
right.
movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm thinking too, as he's like walking through this jungle, I'm like, like his whole drive was this connection with the dad that has this empty bed at home. I'm like, what about all these other kids that you're seeing here? Like they have parents as well. I mean, not all of them, but some of them I'm sure have parents that are looking for them too. But because you don't have an emotional tie to them, well, they don't matter as much. The only one that matters is this girl.
Yeah, I agree with. I see what you're saying there. I mean, everybody matters in this in this situation. But for him, I think it was a puzzle piece. He had his puzzle was like it was there, and he had this puzzle piece, and he did get a big smile on his face when his partner, who by the way I thought that guy did a great job. The short,
I forget his name.
Yeah,
the
cartel,
cigars,
old cartel guy.
Old cartel guy smoking a cigar. I loved him. I thought he was like my favorite character in the whole movie. Caviezel got a smile on his face when he said, like, we saved 54 children, in that big raid, and he got a big smile on his face, like, wow, yeah, I did. We just saved 54 kids, So I think that smile, I think that was a moment for him to be like, wow.
He had a couple. He had a couple smiles in there. The rest of the time, though, he was serious as all hell.
Serious as all hell. Yeah. I mean, it's serious. I think it's
almost like he was breaking character every time he smiled.
Was that a blooper?
Yeah.
That's right. So let's.
I think there's a quote here. I think it's by the director. While this type of human trafficking exists, it isn't the majority, and that most trafficking happens through a manipulative grooming process, not through the kidnapping scenarios portrayed in the film.
Those are like more one-offs.
Yeah, like even the director is saying, like, we made a sort of an action thriller type of movie. That's not necessarily how all these happen. But I think the first bit of beyond the jungle, the jungle rescue scene, the majority of that is fairly accurate.
Yeah.
In terms of things that I've read over the last 4 years and have researched and looked into a little bit. It was all in there. All the bits and pieces were there.
This grooming process, this seductive or very attractive woman shows up at your doorstep saying that, hey, your daughter has it. Your son has the look, whatever. They could be models, or they could be actors, or they could make money. And this is very attractive to these people that are.
You need a front.
Lord,
you need a front. You need a front for this.
Well, and it's attractive. I think the idea of making it means, hey, you can get money. Hey, and not that the dad would. I mean, they're obviously mom's not in the picture,
right? We don't see a mother,
and they're probably low income. It would seem, and so if this is an opportunity for them to, hey, maybe this is a way for us to get out of here.
And you have a fancy woman saying that your kids are exceptional at something. I mean, that's every parent is going to, of course. Yeah. Yes, I want to give them the opportunity to be successful and exceptional, not at home with
immediately,
me in this poor situation.
I mean, immediately when she takes him into the other room and it's like, sorry, no stage dads or whatever, like, I'm like, no.
You're like, what?
I'm like, no. I'm thinking like, I can hear Christiona's voice in my head, I don't think so. Either we come in or we're going away. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that just doesn't happen. But I not everybody has that mindset.
But it is sort of the modeling, the acting. It's dancing and singing. It's those type of things that really entrap sort of the imaginations of parents and kids, because they think like, oh, this is my one chance. Like I rolled the dice good today, and I landed on 6, and we're heading up to the thing. But it's always a woman. It's always that's who because you're going to trust your kid in a woman's care more than Mr. Ohocinski. That was the creepy guy.
Right. If that guy shows up and says, "Hey, your kid's talented,"
he's like, out of there.
Hey, beat it, creep.
So you get an attractive woman, and the fact that in the movie exactly what happened. We've seen that in recent history with the Ghislaine Maxwell lady who would go around and collect women. There was the Nexium cult and Allison Mack and all of that. That was in 2017. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
The Renair guy.
She was the girl from Smallville, right?
The girl from Smallville and her friend.
The TV show Smallville?
Yeah, I remember that show. I never watched it.
There was the blonde girl, right?
Yeah,
she was blonde?
Yeah, blonde girl.
The blonde
you
girl.
know more than I.
So the blonde girl that was like Clark's friend on that show.
Okay.
And Lana's friend, I think, too. Anyway, she got caught in a sex
cult
as being like a groomer.
Where they would bring women in, and the women would bring other women in. They'd all get tattoos, like branded tattoos, of like
she did in the movie.
The Keith Raniere character, his initials basically on them, and it was a cult. Similar, I mean, a little different, but a similar pattern of collection, I'd say. And it's the same thing with the Epstein and the Maxwell, which we know of them. They were convicted.
And the island.
On the island, right. So the island, there's an island in this movie.
Right.
There's a rich guy building a resort on an island.
Which is obviously a front in the movie, but I mean, it's
a reality. It's a
reality.
There's a lot of reality. There was the shipping container stuff.
Yes.
Where they put all the kids in the shipping container with a bunch of water and food. And I've seen pictures of this, after obviously people have left the container, but there are pictures online you could see of that same setup. Couches and blankets and waters and
they did
buckets.
a good job when he opened the container back up and he was disgusted at the smell and stuff like that. And I was like,
it's terrible.
I was like, I just thought that they portrayed that really well.
They did. I mean, just how frightening the thought of that was. Seeing the children initially when they were put in there screaming.
That was good too.
Out that vent that with no fan spinning. Like that's your air and your light for the next however many days or weeks until we get to where we're going.
Yeah. So and also I don't remember what the white dude that was bringing the brother across the border that got caught.
Oh yeah, the creepy fat guy.
Creepy fat guy.
Yeah.
I like when Jim Caviezel went to visit him in prison and told him like, hey, this
is what they're gonna do.
They're gonna chop your balls off.
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. And I was like, all right. I'm glad that he said that.
Okay, all right.
That's right. Well, because when we get down to it, even prisoners have a line,
right,
that shouldn't be crossed.
Well, that made me curious.
And when you're a hardcore pedophile, I think there's just it's a darkness in human beings
that even killers
are like
not tolerated.
Is that still the truth? Like I knew it has been but I feel like this keeps escalating and elevating to where at some point is that going to infiltrate the prison system where it won't be the case anymore?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think men in prison understand they have their own morality code. And I don't think it includes
their own thing,
predating on children. I think that's outside of their realm of what they deem acceptable in prison. I think it still goes on. I think they still wait. Recently at the Penn State guy, he got
Sandusky.
Yeah, he got in prison.
Yes, he did.
Very recently.
And that Nasser dude, the gymnast, the U.S. girls
Nasser,
the doctor.
He's the one that's what I'm thinking about.
He just was an attempt to kill him.
I think they got him. I think he's done.
Oh, did they get him?
I think so. Yeah.
Let me look it up.
Go ahead. Why not? We have Google.
I'm
just trying to think if there's anything I missed.
Yeah.
The shipping containers.
Just happened.
Shipping containers was one. I don't know if you ever seen the show Dexter.
I've heard of that show, and I've heard that it's very good. It's the character's very interesting. Isn't he doing? He's
a messed up guy, and he's a serial killer.
He's a serial killer.
But he works with the police. They don't know he's a serial killer. He's a blood analyst, and on the side, he goes and he finds the guys that the police are looking for and murders them himself because to get that evil, whatever, energy out of him. It's not a great show, but in that he gets all messed up because he was stuffed in a shipping container with his brother, and he watched his mother get killed by a chainsaw or something, whatever kind of screwed up origin story he had. But I just felt it was interesting. The shipping containers keep popping up over and over again.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Movie stylistically, like the movie opens, coming into the girl playing the drum, and then it closes with it going out playing the drum.
Oh, right.
How did that land with you? Just from a movie film.
It's bookending and it's good. I mean, I don't know. You could subvert, when you're making a movie, you can subvert all of the norms and make like a weird movie. But people tend to like things they've already seen before, that they understand. The movie already has a bunch in there that you've never seen before or the subject matter have never been dealt with. So it makes sense to use some tropes that people would like, connect with.
I thought about...
Was it cheesy to you?
It was a little cheesy to me, and it also made me think, like, the reason that she got taken in the first place was because she was singing in public and the lady noticed her. And I'm like, she just was, like, traumatized. You think that she's going to go back to her room and start playing her drum and singing? Maybe she would, but part of me thinks, at that point, are you afraid to sing because you're afraid who else is going to be around the corner listening? I don't know. I just think there's so much.
Those are thoughts you had?
Yeah, these are the thoughts I'm having. Is the trauma that these kids now have to deal with, just going back home and making it seem like they're saved and they're going back home and now life is great again. I just don't think that that's true.
Yeah,
I know that it's nice for the movie.
What I got out of it
I didn't get
was
that.
Stay away. If you have kids and they're talented, be very careful with agencies, casting agencies, modeling agencies. All of them you need to look at them very. This is something everyone could do out there who's a mother or father and have talent. Because I've been in this industry. Best case scenario, they're still going to be like preyed upon by the upper echelons in the industry.
Well,
and that's best case.
That happens with like all of the Disney children, right?
Well, I don't. That's a conspiracy.
It is and it isn't though. I'm saying
they're all happy, nice in Disney, and then they turn,
and then something happens, and then they just like go off the deep end when they're older, and it's like
if you want to make it, there's a certain line you have to cross as a talented young person.
I'm just saying it's all the ones that can act and sing for some reason. It's like they grow up and they're too old for Disney, and then it's like something happens with them, and they just
Zac Efron, see what he has.
But like, it happens over and over and over again.
We discussed it before. There is a grooming process that needs to take place when they're younger, and I don't know, but I'm assuming that there are stars, pop stars, or the like that we know now that are adults that are still under some levers of control from that process from when they were children.
Sure.
So for everyone out there, if your kid's talented, obviously you need to have them show off their talents to the world, but you got to look out for these.
You got to protect them.
My wife was, when she was little, she was good at tennis. And I think a tennis recruiter came around and like tried to get her to sign up for some trip to go to Fiji to learn from a really good tennis coach, and almost convinced her parents about it. And then they didn't have the money for it or whatever, because you put up some money. But looking back on it, I was discussing it with my wife last night, and she was like, yeah, that was weird. I really wasn't that good at tennis. And I'm like, I don't know.
Not good enough to be going to Fiji.
You could have been trafficked straight to Fiji.
Florida probably would have been more appropriate.
I'm just saying, it was a strange story.
High level tennis comes through Florida.
So you just got to watch out. People are going to come by and they're going to say, "Oh, your kid's amazing. What he needs to do is this X, Y, and Z." And they might be on the level, but you just make sure you check it out.
I think people. You're right. I think people are drawn to the idea of fame, celebrity, wealth.
You want your kid to be good at something.
And everyone believes automatically that their kid is great, right? We have a heck of a bias, right?
Sure.
And sometimes it's warranted and sometimes it's way off. But what I will say is that he was not killed. He was stabbed twice in the neck.
He was stabbed
just
twice
recently.
in the neck. But he survived.
He did survive. Multiple times in federal prison.
They almost got him.
They tried. Well, who's to say there won't be another attempt at that? But I mean, this is a gentleman who fit this, who fits into this storyline very well. He had exposure to young, fit, attractive, whatever, talented girls and boys. I think it was girls that he was around with this. It was U.S. women's gymnastics for many years. And who knows to what degree? I mean, I didn't follow the case close enough to know what his, but it
happens all the time. There are independent groups out there. I see Instagram and TikTok videos of them all the time where they pretend on the internet, they pretend they're children, and they meet up with some weird guy with a condom in his pocket in the park. And they say, look, what are you doing here? Who are you here to meet?
Yeah.
These are like watching that conversation.
These are like civilian stings of people.
Yeah, civilian stings. Yeah, we've been seeing it more and more often.
Well, those Chris Hansen things that were popular years ago.
The last one I saw, the guy was a principal at the high school, and he was meeting a 15-year-old boy. He was ex-principal. He was the principal, and he was there to mentor the kid. But he brought a prophylactic with him in his pocket. So it's like these things are happening. I don't know what's going on in society as to why it seems like, at least to me, it seems like it's
on the uptick.
I mean, it's certainly not being.
Yeah, where's this erosion? Depravity, or for me, I look at it as someone's that it's for. Listen, we're all broken in our own ways.
Sure.
We're all messed up. We're all far from perfect. We know this. I feel like once you've gone to this level or this darkness or this ugliness, can you be fixed? Or are your wires so crossed that you are broken as a human being and unfixable? I don't know.
That was a good part of the movie too, though. Is when Cartel guy, I can't think of what his name is, but when he kind of has his transformation moment, where he's like, I saw that I was the darkness inside her or whatever, and that was kind of his change. Which, by the way, they gave him way too much headroom in that shot. It bugged me. If you go back and watch it,
I didn't notice
because Jim, they would go back and forth between him and Jim was like right at the top of the frame, and then they go to him, and it was like super wide on him, and I'm like.
Well, maybe maybe visually they were trying to say that he feels small. He feels like while telling that story, he felt low and small, and Jim Caviezel.
If that's what they were trying to portray, it didn't translate to me.
Yeah, it didn't work.
See, you guys pick up on stuff I'm not noticing. Yeah, obviously.
But and most people don't, and it's just it's objective. So I mean, it's not like one way's right and one way's wrong.
If I was shooting, this is how I would have framed it. Right? I got it.
Yeah. So, but back to what we're talking about. Please. No. I think right now they've coined the term minor attracted people, MAP people. They're calling them now. They're minor attracted people. They're not pedophiles anymore. They're minor attracted people.
Obviously, which is. Obviously, this is the times we live in, right? Where they take a word and they're redefining
but they're doing
it, or
they're
giving stuff. We won't use this word anymore because that's just too much.
They're doing stupid stuff with laws now too, though, where it says like as long as you're within 10 years in age, you can do whatever, and it's consensual.
They're playing with the
they're playing with the law. So I mean, I could be. A 19-year-old with a 10-year-old.
The same numbers, 19 and a 9-year-old.
Yeah,
really.
And obviously that is ridiculous and stupid. But now all of a sudden they're like changing the laws to like protect the wrong people. Almost is what it feels like.
But these minor attracted people are going to address what you were talking about. Yes. Can you come back from that? And they're going to therapy for like sex addiction, but it's a very specific. Apparently, sex addiction is a very broad spectrum, and there's different types. And I'd imagine the MAP thing is one of them. So they are going to therapy to try to come back from it. But I think it's all from the internet. It's all from pornography. People are watching porn. They're lonely. They have nobody in their lives to support them. They barely support themselves. They have the internet. They can see whatever they want. And it just, over the years, it just becomes more and more depraved until they reach the point where, they're watching some of the most terrible stuff you could think of. Because that's like hidden. You know what I mean? They're like have to really work hard to look for that
first guy that
stuff.
that they get that. Jim gets and confronts.
Ohocinski.
What is he on? Yeah, Ohocinski. What is he on? Like the dark, and they're referring the kids as chickens, right? They refer, that
guy.
That guy.
That's an interesting. We could talk about that in a second. Continue.
Well, is he like connected on some dark web? Like, what was that screen that he had up? Is some type of like he was connected into something? Like, I don't.
So listen, I think what was going. Yeah, I know it was rough in the beginning because you were just kind of figuring out where you were.
Right.
But in that scene, from at least what I got to it, is that guy Jim Caviezel and his team were outside the house and they were like, I believe Tim Ballard himself was working at it was like an internet sex crime thing for children, for child porn.
Right.
So they were finding that, and then they went outside his house and they were waiting for him to either download or upload something to, because he was selling it to other pedophiles, I'm assuming.
Right. Yep.
So he was selling child pornography to pedophiles, and then he was like uploading it or whatever and getting money. And I think it had to finish before they could bust him.
Yeah.
Because the legal system is just weird. You know what I mean? Like you have to.
The crime has to happen. You have to let the crime happen in order to pin
and
it
even
on
after
the guy.
that, they couldn't really charge him for that much, and that's why Jim Caviezel had to pretend to be his buddy for a while before he like tried to sell him a kid,
Right.
Which is nuts, but I mean, apparently it's a true story. So that's what he did. He went undercover as a pervert.
I thought it was
for
really
like months
after Jim Caviezel was no longer working with Homeland Security. I thought that it was like there were several or a couple of different instances where, in order to capture the many, like. You would have to let those things play out, like Don King or whatever that guy was, who was taking the little boy.
Yes,
and like even Cartel guy like tried to stop him once, but like Jim Caviezel's, he's like, I keep calling him Jim. I can't remember his real name.
Tim.
Yeah, Timoteo. He like goes and steps in. Same with when he's in the jungle and he's under the bed. It's like.
How far is he going to let them go?
Exactly, but he doesn't let them do it. Yeah, and so I thought that was a cool part of his character too.
I'd imagine, and this is we were getting into what I wanted to talk about. Is I found it interesting that they needed a very rich guy in order to capture more of that. Like they could have probably found one of the perverts. Like they had the guy had the guy dead to rights,
right?
But he had to kind of lure them in, sort of like a sting or a RICO case, you know what I mean, where you got to pretend to be bad in order to catch the bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would imagine in real life. I mean, this was a movie. I'd imagine in real life, Tim Ballard was not involved in some of this stuff, but he had to be privy to knowledge that typically he wouldn't have been happy with. Does that make any sense?
Makes perfect sense.
You know what I mean? Like
he had to put himself in these environments and act as if he was one of these pedophiles.
It reminded me of The Departed. You ever see that movie?
Yes, very much so. It's a good movie. DiCaprio?
Yeah, DiCaprio was playing the double agent, if I recall.
He was.
Yeah, so he had to pretend. He was a cop, but he had to pretend to be part of the gang.
That's right.
And meanwhile, he's doing drugs, he's killing people, he's robbing stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you have to do stuff in order to be a part of the bad guys in order to catch them. So I found it interesting that they needed a very wealthy person to come in and to sort of and legitimize their fake bad operation.
That's right.
And I wonder how much of that goes on today. We were talking about the Epstein thing before. He had his own island. Yeah. He apparently sold children to nobody because no one else has been convicted of anything.
Doesn't that seem odd?
Isn't that odd? Like, where are the people he sold to?
Yeah, that was the thing that bugged me.
What happened to them? So I mean, I like that thought. And then he died in prison. And all the memes or whatever, like he didn't kill himself. I wonder if he's not that bad. What if he was playing this game? I had the thought while watching the movie. Like, what if the FBI like stashed him away somewhere and he was pretending this whole time to get all these people? I don't know, just a thought I had. I'm not sure if that's
interesting.
Yeah, but I'd imagine that they use these rich people all the time, in their resorts and their hotels in order to get the stings happening. I just found that interesting, and I was trying to extrapolate that. Like, what else have I seen that's similar?
That was one of the things that I wished that they would have. They did the jungle thing. I wish instead, if they were going to continue, that they would have gone to, okay, how is this happening in the United States?
Yeah.
Because
a lot of people had that problem.
They had the little quote at the end that said, like, the highest amount of sex traffic consumers is in America. And at one point, like, cartel guy dropped, hey, we don't know where she is. She could be here, there. She could be in LA. He mentioned that.
Sure.
But they never really were like, and that was the thing that you just kind of mentioned is they didn't, yes, the traffickers are absolutely bad. They absolutely need to be caught, and the kids need to be saved from them. But it's because there's a demand for it that it's happening. You know what I mean? And the demand, I mean, obviously
the demand is here. In the
the
United
demand
States.
is here, but
here.
I think a lot of the
supply,
a lot of the supply is probably not from here.
No.
Sure.
It's from countries going through, whether it's a natural disaster or some sort of something going on in the country where everyone's moving around, is turmoil, and that's when the kids and women as well get pulled and taken out. It's happening in Ukraine. There's a lot of kids missing because everyone's moving, refugees, and all the men are going to war, and very complicated scenario.
Yes.
In Haiti, there was a bunch of stuff that happened in Haiti after the earthquake and hurricanes and stuff. Foundations going down there and like getting caught taking kids over here. There was a pastor that was down there. He was caught with 3 kids. He was trying to. They always have the story, though. They're rehoming them. These are orphans, and I'm taking them out of a terrible situation and bringing them to somewhere new. But he had no adoption papers. He had no proof of any of that. So I wonder how often it does happen. And one thing I noticed too in the movie is they needed that rich guy. They cost a lot of money. The kids. This is not like this is not a business where you have like some poor guy, creepo guy living in a cabin that buys the kids.
It's not the child porn guy.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
it's not Ohocinski.
That's not Ohocinski. But that clued me in a little bit. Like that's where all the conspiracy theory people start like, oh, what's going on? Because they didn't address it in the movie at all, but it's implied. If all of these kids are being trafficked, who is buying them?
Right.
They're very expensive. It's expensive to transport a bunch of children secretly through customs and all that. So, I mean, that's where all the higher ups, people with money, rich people with accessibility to cash are the main
buyers.
That's common sense to me.
Right.
I can't see any otherwise.
Yeah, it's most likely it's not your blue collar guy.
I don't think so.
Working his tail off, making $40,000 a year, who has a porn problem.
So I mean that's where my head goes. If you're saying like why is it a problem here? Like what's going on here? And it's people with too much money. That's the only thing I could think of. People have too much money and they start getting weird with it. Money doesn't allow you to live life like through God or Christ. You know what I mean? Like money doesn't allow you to live a good life just because you have money. What money allows you, it gives you the opportunity to
indulge in things.
Indulge in all the bad crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in my head, that's exactly what's going on, and that's who's buying all of these children that are being lost.
Yeah, I mean, just because you have wealth or money doesn't necessarily make you bad
that's what you
or
are.
corruptible.
Yeah, of course not.
It's just the opportunity to be corruptible or to be corrupted is
more accessible to them.
Yeah, I mean, you're given opportunities that most people don't have. Buy your own island or buy your own yacht, disappear for a month.
Yeah, if you have your own island.
I mean, what can I do on this? Right, it's like Lord of the Flies. It's like I'm left to my own devices, and some weird stuff's going to go down.
You've done everything else.
Do you know what I mean?
When you have
normal
that amount of
stuff
money,
isn't exciting to you anymore.
That's what it seems like to me. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Right.
That's what gets me mad.
It would have been. That's what I'm saying. It would have been. I would have rather than going to the jungle. I would like for them to have like tracked a consumer,
Sure,
like a high. I don't know. Maybe it's like go political with it. You know, maybe.
Well, I think they were trying not to go political with it, and this brings us.
I mean, this is based on a real event too. By the way, you know, this isn't. This is based on Tim Ballard's
story,
experience, and his story. So this is where the story went. You know,
I think he's bringing a few of the kids that were saved in the sting that's portrayed in the movie. I think they're going to come out and talk about their story.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be pretty big. I don't know why they're holding on to it.
I mean, the girl, I assumed if she was able to kind of get the help that she needs, I would assume that she would probably write a book about her experiences.
Sure.
You know, why wouldn't she?
But this is a good transition to the reaction to the film, which is what we've seen people say.
National response.
Nationally So
because we're over like 100 million.
So like Yahoo News, Sound of Freedom, what you need to know about the hit faith-based thriller fueling conspiracy theories.
Ooh, they do call it a faith-based thriller.
They did.
Interesting.
Washington Post, Sound of Freedom is a box office whose star embraces QAnon. Rolling Stone, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms.
What are brainworms?
Sound of Freedom is an anti-child trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon.
Oh,
Sound of Freedom, the QAnon adjacent thriller seducing America. And Bloomberg, is Sound of Freedom a QAnon dog whistle or just another thriller? Both rely on tired Hollywood tropes.
What?
MSNBC says kooky, crazy, dangerous. The truth about Sound of Freedom. So this is the response from media as soon as it came out. And we were just talking about all the people with too much money. And then that's the response. It's just, I don't know. There are people out there that their heads will start thinking about and connecting certain dots.
You would hope.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Is that dangerous to say? Should I not have said that?
You can
you got
say,
that look on your face like...
No, I'm having a hard time with...
You just saw it, so...
I just saw it. I'm a dad.
It seem kooky?
I'm a husband.
Do you have brainworms?
No. I have a heart. If this story is real...
It is.
If this person is real, and I believe that he's a real human being who really did some stuff, and he's been around long before this movie came out doing this... The fact that the national media response is pigeonholing this as some type of faith-based farce or fantasy dramatization or whatever, it makes me question like how high up does this go in these networks, right? Because these networks and all these entities are
the point that Steve's trying to make.
I'm just trying to make the connection.
Subtly making there.
Very subtly making.
Really, I don't know why he's trying to be so subtle.
No, it's disheartening. It's
going to depress people.
It gives me a sick feeling because I have an 11-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and my wife looked at me and she says, I'm probably going to be crying on my way home in the car and for the rest of the day. Thinking about this stuff. And if this movie doesn't choke you up with just the thought of 10% of this actually happening, 1% of this actually happening, then you are broken. And I'm talking to anyone listening. If this movie doesn't sit with you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable and pissed off at the ugliness of people, men and women, then something's wrong with you, inherently wrong with you. And it is upon us now to, what can we do as everyday people besides guarding our own children, right? I mean, I can only imagine what I would do to somebody if they were trying to get their hands on my kids. I couldn't tell you what I would do, but they wouldn't be alive afterwards, and it would be really ugly.
Sure.
If you want to see a pissed off Chris Wilson, touch my kid.
Sure.
Do something to my child. And I can only imagine what you're a father of 4. You would eventually like to have children, probably with your wife.
Sure.
I'd call Steve up, or we can call Steve up, and he'll help us with our children.
I just don't know how a real man sits through that, or a real a loving woman, a mother, and doesn't feel like like their skin's crawling afterwards at just the thought of some of these things actually happening.
Sure.
And then for the reporting of this film, when all this other BS is out there in Hollywood about this and that and the $300 million budget movies that are meaningless. They're just purely entertainment. And this one's actually based on reality.
Barbie,
and this is what gets hammered as the nail.
So it enrages me as well, but there's also another side of this. I mean, it could, because since the film is faith-based, there is a thing that happens in like the more left-leaning media,
certainly over the last 5 to 10 years.
Sure, where anything sort of faith-based is kind of the enemy. It's conservative. It's conservative, faith-based conspiracy theory. Like that's been, if you want to discredit something, you say
it's faith-based
you
fantasy.
Throw faith-based fantasy. You throw QAnon in there.
What is QAnon?
We'll get into that maybe in another podcast.
You can tell me later.
But it's like an online forum thing where the group talks about trying to combat the child sex trafficking.
Okay.
And a lot of the things that happen in the movie are kind of what those people talk about. And Jim Caviezel even talks a little closer to that type of stuff.
So,
with
but what you were saying before is that the people who have the money are the people who own the media companies, and therefore, if they're the ones that are the consumers, then of course they're going to fight against it.
They can paint whatever picture they want.
They're going to try to paint a bad picture about it because they don't want their world to come crashing down.
Look at this! Look at this silly movie that came out. Oh, how cute! Everybody likes it. This little indie film.
It's disheartening because as an indie film, it's tough to get out there already. You know, and maybe just because it was so the opposite of what they wanted out there. You know, the Streisand effect. You ever heard of that?
I know Barbra Streisand.
I know you know Barbra Streisand, but it's a term when like the media talks about something and it just in order to like discredit it, but all it does is just bring more attention to the thing.
That's right.
And people wonder like, oh, why am I not supposed to look at this?
Right.
Now let me delve in a little bit and see what they're talking about.
What happened to the kids,
Yeah.
right?
So that could be a little why this movie's doing well.
I can't stop looking at it. Yeah.
But at the recording of this podcast, we're on, I think it's third week, The Sound of Freedom.
Third going into fourth.
It released on the 4th of July.
Yeah. And it's only gained steam. Usually movies, like first week, second week, it's in the box office, things are doing good. And then third week, it starts trickling off and people get less interested, especially because these movies have commercials on every 10 seconds. You'll see a commercial on TV or on YouTube of these big movies. This movie has none of that advertising wise, and it's just gaining steam. So I think the third week was better than the second week, which was better than the first week.
Wow.
So I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I think it's going to open up internationally soon. I don't think it's not even international yet. It's only domestic. So this is all domestic sales. I think 125 million as of today or something. Maybe yesterday. Maybe there's more today. I don't know.
Can I just say, so the one thing that did cringe me with it a little bit,
cringy.
Was Jim Caviezel's interview, which he did it again after the credits of the movie.
End,
but I saw it beforehand where he's talking about like, hey, sex trafficking is going on, and if you don't know what to do about it, then what you should do is you should go see this movie, and then you should pay for someone else to go see this movie. And I'm like, my original reaction to that was, it made me cringe a little bit. But then what he said, what I thought was really good, was he talked about Abe Lincoln, and I think it was Harriet. What was the book that she wrote? Was it?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
He mentioned the book that basically it was something that he used her story to motivate others to help end slavery.
Slavery then, and now we're gonna.
And so he was comparing it with that, saying, "Hey, the reason we want you to see this movie is because we want you to see not my story, but these kids' story.
Sure,
and it's their story that
Harriet Beecher."
Harriet Tubman?
No, not Harriet.
I don't remember.
Well, we had a conversation about
Uncle
this
Tom's
before.
Cabin.
Harriet Beecher.
That's what it was.
Uncle Tom. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Yeah.
And so he said,
Uncle Tom's
Cabin. He said, we want this story to be the catalyst as Uncle Tom's Cabin was for the ending of slavery then. Let's use this as the catalyst to end slavery in the 21st century. And I thought, okay, I can get a little bit more on board with that.
Yeah, we had an argument about it, like you saying, like just seeing the movie or just buying a ticket to the movie doesn't do anything to help any of this.
Right.
Correct.
And I don't know if that's necessarily true. The more people go see this movie, the more conversations like this they're having, the more they post on Facebook that they just saw the movie.
It's a starting point.
Then their aunt might go, oh, you know what? Maybe we should go see that movie,
Yeah.
Harold. You know, and then they're thinking about this type of stuff. And
Tom and Lori.
And that's exactly how it's worked, is what I'm saying, is that third week in, it's doing better than it did second week, which is doing better than it did first week.
Yeah.
It's snowballing in the way that I think they had planned. This is exactly all to plan. And the more people that do go see it, I think it does. It does help. Awareness is first, because the devil tricks you into thinking he doesn't exist, and that's exactly how this particular heinous stuff that's going on has been operating under the shadows for so
Evil has
long.
won when good people
Do nothing.
do nothing.
Hey, all
It's-
right,
yeah.
you need a quote now, because I did one. He's got to do one. Something about evil.
Got it. I'll think about it.
Yeah,
I'll see
think
what I can-
about it.
think-
Think about
see what
it.
I can
But
come
I'm just
up with.
saying, by operating under without anybody knowing that this is even going
God's
on.
children are not for sale.
There you go. Got
Yeah,
one.
I said that.
Got one.
Oh,
But
man.
it's okay. It's
Yeah.
But people
Matt,
seeing
it's
it,
good. You did good.
The news forcing them to talk about how much money this is making.
Yeah.
You know, and then I bet Barbie and Oppenheimer, those are going to slowly fade away in the next week. And this movie will be just growing steam.
I thought it was very
It's gonna be
interesting that as Sound of Freedom is growing the steam that you're talking about, that those two movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer, I can't really say it right.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like they were released as a pair. Like, don't go see Sound of Freedom. We're giving you two great options here. Go see one of those instead, you know? And then they made like the whole, like it's a movie about Barbie, and
their
they're setting up
marketing was funny.
like Barbie boxes at the movie theater that you can go take pictures in, and people are going to see it all dressed in, and it's like making it this thing.
They tried to make a cultural event out of it.
Yeah,
It'll
and-
be dead by next week, is what I'm saying.
And I'm just saying it's interesting that is a push right now as this thing is.
Yeah,
But
almost
whether
as
that's
if they're
intentional or
trying,
not,
yeah.
but it almost feels as though
I don't know.
they're
Well, the
trying.
Oppenheimer is all about fear. It's all
Yeah.
about fearing nuclear war.
Correct.
And the Barbie movie is all about
Fun and
nostalgia.
games? Yeah.
No, nostalgia. Those are the things we watch. We watch when we're scared. That's why everyone watches the news, because they're worried about some X, Y, and Z. Or you watch a show and it's all nostalgia. What else? Indiana Jones was nostalgia. Top Gun. It's all nostalgia based. That
Mission
we make
Impossible
now. Yeah,
just came out.
it's just all. Remember back when everything was happy?
Yeah.
Keep thinking that.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Have that in your head.
Don't
Hold
look
on
in
to
the
that
windshield.
feeling.
Yeah.
Look
Hold
in the
on to
rear
that
view.
feeling.
Yeah, hold on to that feeling,
Yeah.
because we need you right in that space. At least that's how it seems to me. I don't know.
Yeah, but it is frustrating. We have had that conversation that you want to know, what else can I do? I'm not going to, I don't think I'm planning on leaving my family and going into the depths of the jungle to retrieve someone that's been taken. But that doesn't mean that I can't do anything either.
Police your own kids first.
Sure.
I mean, not police, but you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Make sure that they know what's
up.
going on.
Yep.
You have to know that there are, bears in the woods before you go out in the woods.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Yes, I used to play this game whenever my wife and I would go out shopping. It was, let's not irritate mommy game, which meant daddy would go off with the kids while mommy could shop. Whether this was at Home Depot, Target. Or,
Kids love Home Depot.
Kids love Home Depot. There's lots of places to hide. So we would play like hide and seek. This is years ago. I stopped doing it. Because someone's like, dude, kids get taken. Like,
You were playing
kidnapped
hide and go seek
at Target.
Yeah.
It's before I even had my daughter.
that's
This is
not good.
one-on-one with my son. Now, I was never more than probably 20, 30 feet away from him, but here I am trying to hide so he can come find me, or vice versa.
Sure.
Well, they use children to nab children. They use women and children
Or nice-looking ladies.
nice-looking people to go and say, hey, come over here. I got something to show you.
Yeah.
And then that kid's gone.
Yeah.
And so my wife, I remember I think she either read something or talked to somebody who said, like, you probably shouldn't do that. Like your husband shouldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
Let the kids irritate you while you're at the store because
At least
you're
you know
playing
they're there.
At least you know where they are. And I remember talking to Mike about it some years ago, and he was like, "Dude, kids have gotten like Florida or Tampa or whatever.
Florida's
it's like,
not a good place
state
to
for
that.
it, you know." And I'm like, I'm naive, dude.
Yeah.
I'm naive. I guess I have hope in humanity that people are genuinely good. Or,
We're all naive.
And
we're all
naive.
watching Barbie and all naive. We
I
have to
can't-
break out of it.
I
a little
can't
bit.
believe that there's this many disgusting pedophile, like just awful, ugly human
has to
beings
be
out there.
There has to be some
Ugly,
sort of
dude.
balance there too at the same time, right? Because you can't be like, you can't have full optimism and live and be naive, but at the same time, you can't be like, well, you can't live in fear either, where you're like, I'm never leaving my house. Every time we go outside, everyone's arms are tied together with a rope so that we don't lose anybody.
That's right.
That's an extreme as well to the other side, where all of a sudden you're not able to just live life either.
I think you can live life regardless. I don't know. Look, you have to know that people out there aren't all good.
Sure.
In fact, give me a group of 100 people in Walmart. I bet you some of them have criminal records. I bet some of them are actually in the looking to steal something at that moment. You know what I mean? Like people aren't.
Yeah.
We forget. We want to be part of like this homogenous society where we all like. We want to be in a high trust society.
Yeah,
We've
right,
talked
yeah.
about this.
Yes.
Like if
We're
you
all
drop your wallet,
pitching in.
Oh, someone's
Yeah.
looking and go,
Yeah.
hey, sir, you dropped your wallet. Like we don't live in that society.
Yeah.
And as things get worse, like economically, financially, socio-politically, people get a little more
Panicky
desperate,
and
a little
stupid.
more dumb. Yeah, they're doing more things that maybe they wouldn't do typically. But oh man, they only got like $20 in their pocket and they got to make it till Friday. That wallet just fell.
Yeah.
I'll pray on it.
Yeah.
Or like whatever.
And that's
they
a
may be
really
good
weird,
people.
That's a really weird thing with humanity is it's all about perspective, right? So we're watching this show Suits, and they're going through this trial because a guy was practicing law illegally, basically, and he goes through this trial, and they're like trying to do all this stuff to get him off, to not get convicted, and the whole time you're like pulling for him because he's like the main character of the story, and you hate the prosecutor because she's just a mean, nasty old lady or whatever. And I'm like, if they were telling the story from the other side, you would be like, yeah, of course that guy should go to jail. He's a fraud and he was practicing law illegally. But because you have an emotional
You're pulling
connection
for the
with
guy.
him, you start pulling for him. And it's like, that's how we are as human beings. And I've said this several times. I've said this on the podcast before, that we're not the heroes of the story. And oftentimes we think that we are because we're living life through our own perspective. But the reality is you have to step outside of that and recognize we're all fallen. And that's why we have Jesus. That's why Jesus came, is because we all fall. And some people fall maybe a little bit further than others, but we live in a fallen world. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, Steve.
Just saying, some people will take your children. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact. They will, and they want to, whether it's financial gain or some sort of, creepiness that's going on.
Sure.
Just knowing that's
it's all selfish and how to better yourself.
not that you have to
or
tell your
family.
kids that. Your
Sure.
kids don't have to know the nitty gritty of the situation, but they should know that someone might want to take you away from me.
We definitely tell that to our kids.
They should know that that's a possibility.
This is why you have to stay here, is because there are people out there that want to take you from me.
Yeah. And if I'm not
If they
looking,
have the
I
opportunity.
can't do anything about it. And then you're gone.
For that simple point, the movie's worth watching for any parent.
I agree.
Yes.
To at least have a conversation with their child that says, listen, this is why I feel so strongly about this. This is why I take this seriously. This is why when I say this, I expect you to listen and your cooperation, because when we're at the mall, when we're at such and such, if I can't see you, then I don't know that you're safe, or I don't know where you are, or this is why you have to have a buddy system, or this is why if someone you don't know starts talking to you, start screaming fire.
Right.
And that's okay. I'd rather it be, oh, sorry, you aren't a creep.
But you are. If you're talking to someone else's kid,
that's what I'm saying.
without
Like,
the
I don't
parents
just
around,
walk up to
you're
my
a creep.
You know what's funny too? And we were just at Busch Gardens last week. I was there with my wife.
You were playing hide and go
kids.
seek?
Not playing hide and go seek. But I did let my son and his best friend, our neighbor, Jaden, they're both 11-year-old boys, go off. I mean, I feel pretty, they're going to the roller coaster right over from where we are and got in line together. And I'm like, okay, we're at Busch Gardens. They're right there. I was minutes from going over there myself. And then I'm like, did I do the right thing? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm like, son of a gun.
Yeah.
And then I'm in line with my wife. I could see the boys.
At least your kid's been through like martial arts and stuff like that.
Taekwondo
That kinda
and
helps.
stuff. Yeah. I do feel good, and I feel like he just would read a situation well. But now, after seeing the movie, obviously there's like a different level of. I'm gonna have a talk with him now, and my daughter. But my wife and I are in line. We can see them ahead of us now. It's like minutes later, and they're about to go on the ride and stuff. And I'm like, hey, when you get off, wait for us. On the other side, right there. So they acknowledge that and stuff. And I'm just about to go, and in front of me and my wife are two boys about my son's age and his friend, maybe even a little younger, just together. Now, I don't know if their parents are where they are or anything. And I said, I made small talk because I'm standing right next to him. You're waiting in line for minutes. And first words I said to him, I said, have you ever been on this ride before? And the one kid kind of didn't look at me. And the one kid was like, I think he said, yeah. I don't even remember what his response was. But in my mind, all of a sudden, I'm like, am I being a creep to these kids right now? Just because I just said, have you been on this ride before?
Yeah.
And I think I said one more thing. Like, I think he said something. I'm like, yeah, this ride's really, really crazy. I've been on it before or something. And then I was like, I'm going to stop talking to them.
Yeah.
And then it was time for them to go on a ride. And in my heart, I'm like, obviously, there's no ill intent on my end. But that's how simply like a pedophile or somebody can kind of step into a situation, make a buddy, make a friend. Hey, see you when we get off, and we can maybe I'll get you some. Or see that you want to shoot some baskets?
I got a puppy in my van.
Just simple stuff like that, man. And it's just like letting your kids have a bit of freedom.
Yeah,
can obviously backfire on you.
It's so hard. It's like at some point they got to figure it out, but it's like and every kid's going to be a little bit different, obviously. But I was thinking, I've always wanted to do like the undercover thing to my kids to see if they would go with somebody.
Oh, like hire someone to try to take them?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would be a lesson learned.
Because parents, we always think that we're doing a good job. But then I've seen it happen. We're like, yeah, we talk to our kids about that all the time. And then the kid, it's like, I don't remember. It's just some sort of undercover thing where they're like, hey, we have this really cool puppy. You want to come pet my dog? And they're like, yeah. And they actually have the dog. They're like, I can totally see my daughter just like, oh, I love dogs. And they're like, yeah, you like this? She actually just had puppies. You want to come see the puppies? Yeah, I want to see the, over and over and over again.
In your head, in that scenario,
yes.
Are they going to get the puppy?
Dude, it's an 11-year-old
Which is
girl.
why both Christiana and I are like, you guys are not smart enough yet to resist the temptation, and that's why I, as your parent and protector, have to be there, have to see you, and have to be involved with everything that you're doing. When we go to the playground, like we've been to the playground, and all of these parents are like off, like on their phones, and Christiana and I are just like locked in. I mean, we have 4, so she's got 2 and I've got 2.
It's true. You have a little bit more work.
And you're like making sure that you have eyes on them all the time, and we just think, man, how easy would it be for someone just to come and snatch somebody? You know what I mean? And it's scary.
I've thought that at the baseball complex where I've been coaching for years, where my daughter just kind of runs free. But I know 20, 30 people there. They all know.
Community is a big thing.
Community's huge. They all know whose kid that is. Everyone there, she's working the concession there. Everyone knows that's Cameron. That's Chris's daughter. Like, so I feel like security there, like automatically, like people are going to look out for her who I don't even know well, but they know that that's a coach's kid, running around free.
Our population is too big to have a lot of that community stuff that, like, if you would know there's a stranger in town because the
we
15
have that in my neighborhood too, though, in my street. Like, there's 6 of us that all have kids. We all live like next door or across the street from each other. We hang out together. We do holidays together, go over each other's homes and stuff. We all know each other's kids.
Yeah.
So it is strength in numbers. It does start with community. It starts in your home. It starts with your kids, then your neighbors' kids and their friends and that community. And when there's strength there, if you don't belong,
you got like 20 people that are gonna know.
And thankfully, one of my neighbors,
you're on them quick because you're paying attention.
That's right.
You're not just like, all right, we'll see you at 5.
No, that's right. It's not hands off like it was in the 80s.
Drink my wine and watch my shows.
I'd be gone for hours back in the 80s.
In the 80s, though, you made your own mistakes. You were out, you made mistakes, you got burned, you got hurt, broke a leg, maybe did some dumb stuff.
Broke my chin up a few times on a bike. Maybe my mom's like, again? No, but I mean,
Officer Roger was bringing you home maybe a couple times.
I took the dogs on a walk on my roller skates. Didn't do that twice.
Well. Yeah. Stop running.
So it's a little bit of the community stuff, and also you got to kind of, I don't know, I don't have kids, so I'm just trying to
but you're
part
right.
of the conversation.
It's
gotta
home
let them
community.
make mistakes so they know not to not to do certain things.
But it's making mistakes in an area that I'm able to see what's going on. Like, we're afraid to let our kids even like walk down the road to see if their friend wants to come over to play. That's another thing that we don't do is we don't let our kids like stay the night at other people's houses, which is completely different than what it was like when we were kids.
Really, even parents that my kids have stayed over my brother's home, obviously, sleepovers at Uncle Bob and Aunt Lauren's house, and they've done sleepovers at a couple of friends' houses.
We did cousins when we were living next to my sister, where we would because, I mean, we're right next door and we all know each other. But outside of that, we don't even let them go to other people's houses.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I'm trying to figure out.
And I don't fault you for that. No, I get it. I understand it. Everyone has a line, and your line's there.
We're like, have them come over here. But we're always surprised how our kids' friends' parents will just come drop them off at our house and be like, all right, we'll see you. What time do you want me back?
We're going drinking.
It's almost like we're free babysitters, and I'm like, you don't know us. You have no clue what we're doing in here.
Wow.
But it's like, just not even a thought, you know?
Yeah. I mean, even in the garden, God put a snake. You know what I mean? Like, it's always there. So it's important just to know that there are evil things.
Beware.
There's dangerous stuff in the world. It's not Candyland. We live in the actual world where there's good and there is evil. And people are given that choice.
The flip of that is you can't protect them from everything.
Sure.
I mean, you can be doing everything right and still something can go wrong.
But if they didn't know there was a snake,
right, then
that's all I'm saying. I'm saying that it's awareness.
We'll have to set up the sting for our kids.
Yeah, the sting I think would be good.
Oh my gosh, that'll be another
it's
podcast.
Scary.
I wish they didn't know me.
Scary.
I'd like to do it. I am Mr. Ohocinski.
They're like, Mango Steve.
You are Mango Steve. Forever.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. They know me.
But I know that beard.
Yeah, we could. It might be in we should talk to our wives about that. See if they would be on board with doing something like that.
Oh my gosh, I think my wife would be. She'd be so worried and concerned, like.
Well, yeah, so would mine.
Oh my gosh!
But it doesn't mean that.
No, I mean
it's not worth it to see what our kids would do.
If it involves a puppy and my daughter, there's a good chance that anybody could get her interested.
And with the boys, it's a video game.
It could, yeah.
Like they start talking to them about Pokemon, and they start talking to them about Zelda or Mario Smash, and they're like, "That's cool," and they're like. They could even have a Switch. Start playing with them with the Switch. You know what I mean? There's so many ways. I just gave the whole world. We just gave the whole world 2 great ideas on how to come get our children.
I think these were pretty obvious ones.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry, I got loud again.
Okay.
But it's obviously there's so many feelings, and our responses as dads and protectors and stuff is going to be one of. Concern, anger, and ultimately, like, what do we do now? Like what's next? What do we do? What do we do?
Can I ask you a question, Chris? Do you think if you went to, because you said you know all your neighbors and you all kind of do barbecues and stuff.
Yeah.
What if you made something a little bit more official with your little community and said, I'd really like to put some sort of a plan down for whatever, X, Y, and
They'd
Z.
They'd be on board in a second.
I wonder if that would work with other communities. I mean, that is like something, like there are organizations and things that you can donate money to, and there are resources and stuff. But really, to me, the only thing that makes sense is like just start with your family and start branching out in not only awareness, but some sort of a plan.
We're
or
in a group.
Lookout.
We're in a group. We have a neighborhood group chat, which is 6 homes. And it's
I was really
all
close
of
to
us
being
are
a
on
part
it.
of that.
You were?
I just missed
Oh,
out.
yeah, you were.
Yeah.
We almost lived in the same neighborhood. If we see, like, I remember there was a suspicious guy walking through the neighborhood some months ago. They had a description of him and everything, and he was reported being seen a few different times.
Who reported him?
He was on Facebook. Somebody
In your community.
In our community, in the back neighborhood, but maybe walked down our street and was spotted. And people are like, where's this guy coming from? And we've seen him multiple times. Not sure where he lives. Did he come through the woods? Where is he coming from? And I don't know that it became anything, but I remember in our group chat, a lot of back and forth happening. Hey, I think I saw him, or this, that, and the other. One of my neighbors is a cop, and it's just he parks his undercover car right out in front of my house, along the curb in front of my neighbor's house. So there's extra security in that, obviously. Stuff doesn't usually go down when there's a cop car just sitting there all the time.
The puppy trick ain't going to work, guys. Whoever's listening.
So, but I love that idea of, yes, I mean, communication is huge. Isolation is a huge negative.
And it's a problem. We're all isolated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I used to live in an apartment building for like 8 years. I didn't know who lived next to me.
Right. You don't even know their name.
That's city life. It's a little different, but there was, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of people living in that building. So it's like, I can't. Yeah. I work. I don't.
But once you know someone, it's about connection. When you know somebody, you have feelings for them now. Sure. And there's just something extra now that plays into like, hey, I heard something the other night. Are you okay? Or I noticed this, or I noticed that. And so there's inquiry now. There's like, you care. There's a different level of care and awareness that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And I think more of us need that.
And so it sounds like something else that we can do. This is less for people being trafficked, but more for being aware and protecting ourselves is getting outside of that isolation and intentionally getting to know the people that you live around.
And making that the norm.
Yeah.
If your neighborhood's doing it, even if there's the next neighborhood down the block, they may not have heard this podcast or watched Sound of Freedom, but if they see you guys all organized and like protecting your neighborhood, why, they might say, oh, well, why don't we do that too? That sounds like a good idea.
Or, it gives them less places to come and try to snatch children.
Sure, yeah.
So we've always been intentional. Everywhere that we've lived, we've always been intentional to go and know our neighbors and meet our neighbors and have a good relationship with our neighbors. It's always been important to us.
I'll tell you what, having dogs, just the simple fact of having a dog, a pet, because that gets you outside walking your neighborhood. You get very familiar with your surroundings, with cars associated with houses, with people associated with houses. Who else has dogs? Who else, and you're just walking around a lot. Like my wife could probably write a 1,000-word essay about just the happenings of the neighborhood while she's on dog walks.
Yeah, we need busybodies.
We need busybodies.
Bring busybodies back.
I'll tell you, a grandma who stares out the window, not a bad security item there.
She knows everything.
Yeah. I noticed that blue car comes and goes a lot.
Gladys.
I can just...
It's Gladys from Bewitched.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude.
I noticed your marigolds keep dying.
I used to call my sister Gladys when we were living next to her.
Why? She was a busybody?
Oh, yeah. She always knew what was going on everywhere.
Busybodies are that's not a bad thing, man.
Sorry, Jessica, for throwing you under the bus.
So anyway, no, I think start small, know your neighbors, know your surroundings, be aware of things, have talks with your children about the world that we live in.
Have you seen?
Don't scare them to death, but just be real.
Yeah. There's a really good speech that I showed Steve the other day with from the Andy Griffith Show, and it's with this like grazer guy who's like trying to get Opie to like disobey his dad or something.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Who's to say that the boy would be happier your way or mine? Why not let him decide? No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince them that other things might be better in the long run. And all a parent can do is say, wait, trust me, and try to keep temptation away.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
I thank you because this didn't necessarily occur to me that this would be something, run out, see, talk about, and then put out there, because just this mere conversation and some extra exposure to this side of humanity and this movie is a good thing, I think. I mean, it starts conversation. It starts people heading in hopefully a safer world for our children. It's a tough topic. I can't believe I made it through it without crying. Yeah. In this podcast, that is.
No, the podcast.
Yeah, no, I thought there was going to be a moment where something just hit me and I lost it for a second, but I really kept it together.
Well, I think that just to end here, I do think the best thing, what happened in that movie is when Tim Ballard, he was trying to convince the rich guy. I think it was the director that played the billionaire. The billionaire.
Oh,
he was like, no, I can't get involved, you know.
Do it.
And then he left him that picture.
Yes.
And he's like, look, the 50 or 100 children, it's and this is for everyone. It's hard to imagine that, and to really emotionally connect with it. Yeah. But once you have a picture of one child,
one kid,
and knowing what that child is going through, that was the point that billionaire, he could not escape that horror in his head, and had to help. So I think that's how everyone connects to things. And
it was cool because they went to Columbia, and we have a couple of compassion kids that are from Columbia. Oh, wow. And so that was there are organizations out there that are not necessarily battling sex trafficking, but they are invested in children and helping children that don't otherwise have the opportunity and putting them in places where they are safe and protected. And so I think that's another good avenue of a way that you can't physically go somewhere, but look into these organizations. And I think you were saying to be very intentional about what model agencies, but be very intentional about what agencies you're looking into and what they're actually doing, the organization, what they're actually doing. And I know that Compassion is one that we've supported for a long time, and we love what they do. And so that I think is another place of something that you can do something.
That's fantastic. We will share some links in our show description for some great platforms, some organizations that are out there doing the good work. And it starts with one kid. If we can put a name to a face, I think that's what's really going to get people to take action. And I just appreciate both of you guys and our listeners, of course, for coming back and enjoying another podcast here on Strong by Design. We appreciate you, of course. If you're a new listener and this was your first episode, that was obviously a pretty powerful conversation. You can go back and listen to hundreds of past episodes over the years, and we just are encouraged for you finding us, and I hope you continue to come back for more. Thank you so much, and please share this episode with a friend or family member who needs to know about this movie and should go see it. Hopefully we didn't, we did obviously kind of give it all away, but I think Sound of Freedom, it's a true story. So the spoiler alert is already out there. So we'll talk with you next week as we release a new podcast every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. Talk to you soon. God bless.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.